Hej! This is the Lafo Integration genom kultur podcast. These 3 episodes is going to be a dialogue between 2 folk musicians, Kenneth Nordman and Francis Oyeyiola. Kenneth is from Czech, Finland, and Francis is from Ghana, West Africa, and as podcast hosts, me, Lukas Djupsjöbacka. We're discussing differences and similarities between folk music from South Österbotten and West Africa. This project is financed by Österbotten and Svenska Kulturfonden. Here's the first episode. What's your musical background and how did you choose this instrument? Like
for me, I never. It's quite fun. I never, for instance, in Ghana we don't have music schools.
No.
I mean, like in Finland, you go to, let's say, Arbis, or come to your school here to learn music. We don't have that kind of system.
Yeah.
So music is mostly to our ears, meaning that you hear and then you replicate and then you build on it.
Yeah.
Like here, when we're talking, like here, you go to the school, they teach you the theory about the music, you learn the notes, the half, the whatever. For me, I can't tell you when it's half or quarter or 1/8, or I can't. But if you play and I can hear it, I'll be able to replicate it. Or I can jam with you.
Yeah.
I don't need a note or anything. So for me, my passion with music started, I think, some years I went to study in Nigeria. And then I developed they had this drum in Nigeria from the Yoruba tribe. It's called the gong. It's like talking drum. You put it in your armpit and
Yeah.
So I fell in love with that drum, and that's also a percussion. So I fell in love with that, and I started trying to learn, trying to play. And then I left it, and then I came to Finland. But the funny thing is that even though this is from Ghana, when I was in Ghana, I never played this. I actually started playing when I was in Finland.
Okay.
And it all started, I visited, one Ghanaian was getting married to a Finn.
Yeah.
And during the engagement party, they wanted to have some African music.
Yeah.
But none of the guys knows how to play the drum. So they asked me, can I do it? So then they had a very small djembe. So I said, yeah, sure. So I took that drum, and I can't even remember what I played. I know that it wasn't good, but it still sounds something.
Yeah.
So we did that, and they were quite happy, and we were singing and stuff, and they really fell in love with it. So that's where then I said, maybe it seems maybe my passion from the talking drum, I can move it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then that's how I started gradually, and then I had a group. And actually, these are the first drums I bought from Ghana to Finland.
Okay.
In 2009. And these are the drums that actually started my career in Finland.
Okay.
These two.
What do they have names?
Well, I only know that this is the female and this is the male.
Yeah.
But I haven't given them name yet.
So it's actually like you have like for darker and
yeah, because for instance, this one, when you look at the skin,
yeah,
you see if you touch, you see this one is a bit hard. You see this is a bit soft, and this is different. You see this one a bit lower and this is a bit high. Yeah. So usually the lower, the higher one are the female. Female like shouting. So. So the one with high pitch usually are the female, and then the one with the low, you see, it becomes the male. So usually you start with the male, and then you accompany it with the female.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they just.
And
it's kind of funny because when you look at it in African culture, the men are very masculine and dominant. The lady just have a very small role they play, but it's also very significant.
Yeah.
Even though they have very small role, it is actually it makes a huge difference. If I play only this one, you see that small
Yeah.
changes
Yeah.
the
What's your musical background, Kenneth, and how did you choose this instrument? Like, I know you play bass as well, but was that the first you started like?
Well, actually, violin was the first instrument for me, and I think partly because my grandfather on my mother's side played.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of, and then we also had when I went to school, like when I was maybe 8, 9 years old, they gathered. A group of school children, and there was our teacher Helge Hagback, who was teaching like the basics of folk music and the basics of violin. So like that was my first like teacher in folk, and it was from the first moment it was folk music.
Okay.
So and that was also because they had started the Chuck Spelmanslag, the group that I'm now leading today, and we're still playing, and a lot of the us really young kids then are still playing in Chuck Spelmanslag today. So we had like 1 or 2 years we played with Helge, and then straight into Chuck Spelmanslag. So we're sitting there, and I still remember like these old guys playing really well. I mean, there were a lot of maybe 15 people like playing, and we were sitting there in a corner and barely like do I dare try to play this? It sounds not so good.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that was really good that they actually took us and put us there, because yeah.
And you got your the violin from your grandfather, or?
Yeah, the first violin I played was actually too big for me, because it was my grandfather's violin that he built himself when he was 12 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. I probably didn't sound that good, but
it did the job.
Yeah. But he and his brother, they like they wanted to play the violin because their father played the violin, and so they had to build a violin.
Folk music, it's combined with dance, like we saw like here, and I think that it's the same in every culture. But I know here in Lappfjärd as well, there's something called silverbröllop, silver wedding, and that was a real big role in folk musician around here to be a part of a silverbröllop back then. How was it like structured for a folk musician back then? Was it like a first song you supposed to play when the wedding started, and the last one, was it like or was it just slow and fast ones?
Well, the silver weddings, that was like the traditional peasant weddings, and they actually, even in the early 1900s, I think 1925 was the last time somebody actually got married in the like a real silver wedding. There have been both in Chuck and in Lappfjärd, there have been reenactments in the 80s, and I think the last one was in Lappfjärd 1999, like for an audience, but not a real wedding.
Okay.
But in 1925 was the last real wedding in Chuck. So, but in the 1800s, that was, if you only could, you you got married in the silver wedding tradition, because that was a big party, and the wedding went on for traditionally 3 days, and the musicians had a real important role, if there was one or several, often playing the violin. They were like almost like ceremonial masters of the wedding, because they knew when things were supposed to happen, and a lot of the things that went on at the weddings were accompanied by a special tune, like when the bride often got dressed like half a kilometer from where the wedding was. If they could, they had the wedding at the parents of the bride, and they dressed up the house with a lot of mirrors and shiny things, and then the bride got dressed like half a kilometer from there, and then all the guests, and it could be up to like 500 guests if it was a big wedding, they marched, and then you play the wedding march when they walked, and then they got wed, and then after everybody was congratulating, and then you had a tune of congratulation. It was a special tune that you always played that tune at the congratulation, and then after you ate, it was like three courses, and then after you had eaten, you played a menuet that was called Pellhållar menuet, because when you got married, you have these 3 boys, 3 girls that were holding like a silk cloth over the couple that got married, and the bride had to dance with each of the boys a minuet, and the groom with each of the girls. So all these like ceremonies, and then they had like polskas for like the gubbarna and the kärringarna, the old guys, and the old ladies had each their own polska that they danced, and then they had a minuet on the second day, and the minuet on the third day. So it was like really, and when they brought in the food, they had special different tune for when you brought in. They played the Plägarmarsch, and
I think that was probably the hardest work for a musician back then for a wedding, because it was so much playing, right?
Yeah. And I mean the musicians then had a really important role.
What about your wedding culture back in Ghana? Is it like a celebration, of course, but is it a big role for a musician?
Yeah, they have a huge role. Unfortunately, the thing is, my tribe in Ghana, because according to history, we kind of travel a very long distance. So during that trip, a lot of things have been missing because we don't have any documentation. So meaning that a lot of things has changed. The way they do things has changed, and now where they are in Ghana, because they are in the coast, typical traditional wedding, I think it's almost this the beginning. You have a certain kind of music when the bride is coming in, and then after the wedding, then so it's the beginning is a bit slower tune, but then after the wedding is done, then the tempo goes high. So it's like starting with menuet and ending with polska.
Of course, same.
So it's always kind of solemnly, just very small, just to usher them in, because during that period everybody is tense as to, hey, I hope this wedding will end peaceful. No, nothing will happen until once everything you are now together. Let's party. So I think it's followed, but it's quite funny that even though these two, Österbottenian culture and Ghanaian culture, is too far, they follow almost the same principle.
Yeah.
You know, the same principle that you have the beginning, an intro, calm, and then after it becomes like a huge
Yeah.
celebration.
How many like musicians here? It was like Kenneth said. It was like it could be 1 to 6 players or something. 6 to 4.
I think usually maybe not that many.
No.
I think of course that could depend from time to time, but I think 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe like. I would
For
guess.
us, it's quite huge.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, in my tribe we have this the Panogo music, which is based on this drum, and mostly celebratory, like it's for celebration, meaning that mostly it's happiness. And because of the way they play it, of course they have 2 different versions of it. You have the one they call the gome, and then you have this other the pure Panogo. And if you want to play the full set of that, it means that you need to have one master. So the master means that he follows the bride and stuff, and based on their movement, try to replicate it with the drum. You know, yeah. And then after the master, you have at least 2 to 3 backup, and the backup simply means they keep the rhythm. They don't change. No matter what happens, they don't change. And the reason being that the master can go and come back, meaning that he can go play, do whatever, even sometimes can go off beat, but then he needs to have that bass to come back to.
Yeah.
So it's always like that. And then on top of that, then you have a go-go, this one, then there's another one. It's like the cajon. That's what they call the gome. You sit on it, and it's made with leather. Cajon is made with wood, but our one is made with leather, and you can tune it in the back. You have like you can pull and you can make it tight or loose, and so so that offer the bass. So that is our bass. That gives the bass for this. So you at the end of the day, you have like, I don't know, on drums alone around 5 to 6 people.
Yeah.
And then you have people behind you who are singing. So there's always someone playing the this clava.
Yeah.
No, this, or we call it agogo. It's the same thing in Brazil. You know, they call agogo. Yeah, we call it agogo, and you have someone playing that. So that one is the metronome for these ones.
Okay.
So it's a big. At the end of the day, in the whole band, you are talking about sometime between 10 to 15 people.
Have you a go-go? You said like the rhythm like a
Go-go is
clava.
like the metronome for the
Okay.
But then it follows this typical clava. This
Yeah.
So this is one, and then there's this. So these two comes together. So you have 2 people playing that, and that one determines the tempo of the song. If they go fast, the drums have to go. If they go slow, so whatever they do, the drummer. So that's like the metronome for all the drummers. And then most usually those people that play it, they start the song, like they sing. So the song usually we have like they lift the first part, and then everybody sing along, and then they continue. So it's kind of like forth and back.
Yeah.
But in how about the instrumentation in where you come from? Is it? I have like a picture of that. It's a lot of drums and singing, and not that much more.
No, it's a lot of drum singing and dancing.
Yeah. So you don't have like you don't that often have somebody playing the melody on an instrument. It's the singers who provide the melody. Or do you have like melodic instruments?
Yeah, most of the instruments you have are mostly melodic. Okay. In the Kwanlogo setting, it's rare that you have a flute. Flute is something, it's actually very, very rare that you have. Mostly is this, the agogo, and then the gome. And then later on, I think in the 60s, 50s, then they introduce the acoustic guitar,
Yeah.
and that changes the whole complete. It changed the whole thing.
Yeah.
Of
And then
course,
from
of course.
there, a new kind of genre came up. The one we call it's actually the fundamental basis for every Afro music in West Africa now is the Afrobeat came from, we call it high life,
Yeah.
because once they introduced the guitar and then the trumpet came in and then but before it's just mostly percussion,
Yeah.
and then you have the
So the folk music changed a bit, like
It-
from that was the step when the guitar
yeah
came.
when the guitar came in,
Yeah.
especially I think in the 50s 60s we had a lot of Ghanaians, because then Ghana was I think it's some sort of dictatorship early then, that's during that period. So a lot of these people had a connection with other European countries like the Soviet Union and stuff, so they sent a lot of Ghanaians to study doctor and stuff. So when they came back, some of them learned the guitar and stuff. So when they came back, they found a way to kind of incorporate it with this, and that changed the music scene completely.
Yeah.
It's interesting because if we're looking at the traditional music here, that was actually quite well, not completely dead, but it was really out of fashion, like in the maybe from the 40s, 50s, 60s. It was not hip to play the traditional music. But I think then it had a revival like late 60s and in the 70s. You had a really big revival. And then you founded a lot of spelmanslag, like these
Playing groups.
groups
Yeah.
like you see today still. But I mean, earlier than that, I think it was maybe late 1800s or so, when the accordion came. That was like a big change in the traditional music here.
Yeah.
And I know there was like a huge resistance.
It's always
because
but
I mean
then
the accordion
yeah.
that they thought that wasn't a real instrument. And of course the early accordions didn't sound that good. They were out of tune and so, but that changed a lot of how the music started to sound from like the early 1900s, and you started playing a lot of music that well today is considered to be traditional music, like
we
like
too today the guitar is not our thing, but then today is also regarded as a traditional music with the acoustic and then the percussion and
that's interesting because it's the same story both of you said when the accord instrument came in.
And I mean before at least here in Österbotten is really almost famous in the Nordic countries for having so many minuets that are still played today, because there are a lot of violin players who like to play the minuets, and minuets or polskas are kind of like the trademark of, I think, Österbottnian traditional music. You don't see that many. Well, if you go to even the Swedish-speaking southern parts of Finland, you don't see that much. You have minuets and you have polskas, but not the same amount as you have in Österbotten.
I noticed that.
Yeah. But when the accordion came, I think accordionists they didn't that much like to play minuets, and so then you started to see a lot of waltzes and like
that's went to the Finnish people.
shottis and polkas and you know, like the more modern stuff. So I think
because I hardly see the accordion influence when it comes to the Österbottnian Swedish speaking. Well, when you move a bit inland to the Finnish,
the accordion is really big.
It's actually even you have a whole music song just on the accordion,
yes.
and then they dance around it. No other instruments. Kind of the accordion becomes the the heart of the
Yeah.
this, and then later they added the snare.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, and there is, I mean, depending on, there are a lot of like really good accordion players who can play with violin players, and and you can play tunes really good together. But if you start playing with an accordion player that's used to only play with other accordion players, then it can be quite a challenge to make it work.
Imagine,
And I mean that's of course goes both ways. If you have a violin player that never played with accordion players, only with other violin players, because the intonation also the intonation is different when you play with violins or when you play with an accordion, because you have to of course listen to how it's and
because I think at that point it's no more about the chords and stuff. It's now about the what can I hear, because in every music when you listen to, there's always this gap. So for me, the reason why I'm able to play, I have to listen. He has this gap in between, even though he plays, but for me I see gap. So that gap is where I'm able to fill in. So that's why I cannot say that. For me, it doesn't matter, how fast once I could listen the first part, because most songs is actually always in a loop.
Yeah.
It's always in a loop, because when he first played, I waited for him to complete the loop. So I see how the sequence goes.
Yeah.
And then when he started the second, then I'm now okay. Now I know how it goes. Now I know where to come in.
Yeah.
So that's the way I kind of play my music.
Can you hear the difference between the folk musicians around your area?
I think in every culture it is, and you can recognize based on the way they play. You can know that these people are from this tribe, or these people, even though maybe not tribe is not the right way, but it could be the same. But you can recognize these people is from maybe, let's say, this village or this place or this group, or they have a very unique style. Even they use the same instrument, but the way they interpret this instrument is completely different. So you can easily recognize, this is from this village of whatever it is. This is the name of this group. So each one of them always have a certain unique style of play. For instance, in Ghana now there are about 2-3 different groups that plays the traditional Panlogo songs. We have one group is called Ulome. We have Alan family. And then we have other. When you listen to each one of them, even though they are playing the same music, but you could recognize that no, there's something different in them. It could even be the same song, but the way they will interpret, and it comes to the same what you said earlier on.
Yeah.
Based on that particular group, the way they put their own touch to it, somebody might imitate them, or then he will take it and then make it their own.
Yeah.
And I think this is what is happening with music nowadays. That at the end of the day, the same name of the music, Menuet, Panlogo, whatever, it has different variation, different tentacles, different. And for me, I think that is the beauty.
Yeah, I think one also real interesting, if you look at traditional music, and I think probably the same in Ghana, you have certain tunes that are quite popular, and from way back they've been like traveling, so you can think that this tune belongs here, this is like a traditional Czech tune, and it comes from here, and then you can hear the same tune somewhere in Sweden or in the southern part of Finland, and they play it a little bit different, but you can hear it's clearly the same tune.
The same tune,
yeah.
The fundamental are the same, but the peripheral, those around it, is interpreted differently.
There's one Polska, I think that's that one is it's the Polska that they have found the most variations of, and I think if I remember correctly there is like 170 versions written down of it. The same Polska.
That's quite a lot.
That's quite a lot.